All right, I want to welcome you guys both to the show today. This is a brand new session.
Thank you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, so I have Ryan Morrissey and Brian Better here, two of my good friends from that I probably see and probably see more times each week than I do my kids and my wife at times, you know, when we're training heavy. But I just want to do a brief introduction to my audience. They're probably wondering, what is this going to be all about? And this is going to be fun. So I have Brian here. I'm going to read a little bit about Brian. Brian's the co-founder of Tessemae, and he's the chief growth officer for Tessemae, which is I'll let Brian do Tessemae justice in a moment, but a small business owner and entrepreneur. And Tessemae is a pioneer in clean food manufacturing, and he's also a former Division I athlete and a former professional athlete. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
And Mr. Ryan Morrissey. Ryan has operated in the fitness industry since 2003 as a personal trainer, fitness director, and sports performance coach. After an injury-plagued high school and college basketball career, Ryan developed a passion for change in personal training, injury prevention, and treatment. In 2010, Ryan founded Peak Custom Fitness Solutions, a fitness and performance facility where overlapping services such as fitness, performance training, nutritional coaching, physical therapy, chiropractic, massage, and mental skills all work together to provide integrated health solutions. So here we are. And so we spent a lot of time in training for events and sort of trying to continue to be the best that we can be well after our days, our real kind of noteworthy young 20 days are over. But so what do you guys think about what we do each week, and why do we continue to push ourselves? Brian, why don't you start there? Why do you continue to push yourself each week?
So first I want to say you're welcome to Ryan Morrissey, because in 2010, he got introduced to what I would consider a highly skilled degenerate. And it wasn't on purpose, though. I just didn't have the Peak Custom Fitness Solutions that I needed. And I would like to give myself credit for all of Ryan's success, because I was so bad with so much potential. He had to literally create a facility for the most extreme case. And now everybody else gets to pick and choose, like an a la carte, how to make yourself perfect. So thank you. And you're welcome, Ryan.
Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
How did you guys meet each other?
So no, not even joking. So I was playing professional lacrosse, and I constantly had the same injuries. And a friend of mine said, "Hey, you really need to go talk to this guy, Ryan Morrissey. He thinks about the body right. He thinks about just rebuilding yourself within your own parameters. And he doesn't peanut butter spread general knowledge. He literally is going to make you take your shoes off and put your arms over your head and sit in a chair, and he's going to stare at you very aggressively, not say anything, and take notes." And I said, "All right, well, I'll do anything, because I'm in such pain. And it's really starting to bother me that I can't just go to practice anymore and be better than most people." So he has helped me over the past 10 years, not only rebuild my body and my mind, but he's also helped me put a process in place that has allowed Tessemae to grow to be what it is today. And whether he wants to give himself credit for that or not, he deserves more credit for helping me create a process that I can fall back on to fight anything, right? So then we can bring the Tessemae products to the world. And it's a pretty interesting overlap that is proven, because we started Tessemae in 2010, and Morrissey started Peak in 2010, and here we are both disrupting very big industries. People don't know about Morrissey like they know about Tessemae. But Bill, if it's up to you and I, Morrissey will be a household name before the day we die. I can promise you that.
Yeah, well, I agree with you. It's it's funny. Your title is Chief Growth Officer, and I think you can't be just Chief Growth. You have to live growth in all ways. You can't just live growth through the company. And maybe that's partially what you're saying, is that the more you're able to grow as a person, and you're able to extend that into the company.
That's exactly right.
So Ryan, let's talk for a second. Did you ever think of yourself when you started Peak as disrupting fitness?
No, I was too busy trying to figure out all Brian's problems. The goal was to do things.
Did Brian have a lot of problems? Did he have a lot of problems?
Oh, endless.
Still.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's pretty evident now. No.
And this is Guinness, by
make
the way.
sure you send me your Venmo handle and I'll Venmo you for that intro. Appreciate it, Brian. Brian came in with a cluster of orthopedic issues. I won't get too deep into the lifestyle issues he was also working through at the time.
With the Guinness that just rose?
Yeah, yep. And
the lax bro back then.
The lax bro attitude and everything else we were working through at the time. But to give you credit, BV, not only obviously as a phenomenal athlete that you were and still are, I was used to working in big box fitness, Bill. So you ask about, did I see a change or how could I disrupt fitness at the time? Well, I was just getting worn out like a lot of people I'm sure do.
Big box fitness being like 24 hours fitness, is that what you mean? Okay.
Exactly. Yep. Where most of the people that you're working with don't really want to be there, and expect immediate results and don't want to commit long term, don't want to put in the work, don't have the consistency. And really the services and the models aren't in line with what I was able to do with Brian because we created these services and the model to be able to do that. So it takes a village, when you're working with somebody that has needs in different areas. And I think one of the most important things to know as a provider in health, fitness, wellness, performance is to know your limitations, right? And we can't do it all. So I know what I can do and I know what I'm pretty well versed in and I know what I'm not. So the first thing we did, when we started Peak was to bring in all the other pieces of the puzzle to be able to tackle Brian's needs and everybody else as a team. And that's what it takes. And, the orthopedic concerns that Brian had, he had physical therapy with, one of the best PTs out there. And we were able to communicate and tag team about his program along the way. And through the rehabilitation process on that end, and having fitness, mold or blend into PT instead of you're either in a strength and conditioning program or you're out and hurt. Having that mold and process, we were able to blend those things, I think helped him accelerate the process and go from, a guy that was beating up his body. His body had already undergone some damage through playing college lacrosse with some pretty significant injuries. So Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in 1 year you went from playing on the Bayhawks, second string midfield, right, coming off the bench to the next year you guys won a championship and you were second leading scorer on the team. Pretty impressive turnaround. And to give Brian credit, much different than the big box clients that I was used to working with. Whatever we said, Brian committed to that day, and there was never any question. So we were able to streamline the process because it was all objective. There was no back and forth about, I'm tired, I'm busy, I don't really feel like committing to this. Why do I need to stretch at night? What's a foam roller? Why do I need to do these foot exercises? It was just, Roger that, let me go. And he did it. And he's the same way to this day, 10 years later. So, I coach Brian right now for whether we want to call it general fitness or getting ready to peak for any specific event that comes up on the calendar. It's easy. He makes it easy because he just dials in and is very objective and follows the game plan with no excuses.
Yeah. For those of you that are looking in, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. So we've got the Peak facility here. One of the wings, and we look at Brian's jersey right there.
There it is.
Yeah. So
I texted Dunn and Manis and I said, "You boys sure are standing on the shoulders of a giant."
I think the only thing that I wanted to ask about was, so we have this right here. So Ryan, maybe you can explain, there seems to be a couple of sponsors here. Red Zone. I don't see a Tessemae here. What's going on?
We need to update this banner.
But what's this up here? The spear. Tell me about the spear. And so you've got the pro athletes, which is great. I mean, the highly committed, the guys that you groom basically. You're well known. Would you say you're well known and your company's well known for taking a lot of the high school athletes here and college athletes and taking them into the next level? Would that be something? Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think that would be accurate. Yeah.
Then you've got this whole group of folks that's trying to do more like the adult athletes that you're spending time with the whole group of folks that are trying to continue to be fit as they get older. Mm-hmm. Would that be accurate?
Yep, it definitely is. Yeah, our target markets are pretty widely ranging, and we treat everybody the same now. We try to give the pro athlete treatment to everyone that walks in our door, and we look at it from a number of different angles. So we have the orthopedic concerns, physical therapy kind of end of it, make sure everybody's body is operating the way it should. No one's ever is as they walk in the door day one. So we need to figure out what those issues are and what the obstacles are that hold them back. And in the fitness industry, all too often, we overlook that. So we want the quick fix, right?
Why do people fall apart? Why do people, Brian, when did the wheels start coming off the bus, Brian, where you just couldn't go out there and pound workouts, drink some beers, show up the next day and do it again? When did that start happening? Like what age?
So it was actually the last game of fall ball my freshman year at Towson.
Freshman year. Okay.
Yeah, freshman year. So I had never been hurt in my life. Okay. And I also had never trained other than, going to practice and competing. And so when I did get hurt, I want you to imagine the windshield when a rock hits it and it completely cracked.
Yeah.
That's what happened. So the one kink in my armor broke and I fell apart, Bill, like you had never seen. I went from male athlete rookie of the year for all sports to barely being able to get on the field like I knew how to, because I didn't have the infrastructure like Ryan provided me. And more importantly, what was super frustrating is if your knee hurts, they fix your knee. They don't try to figure out why your knee is hurting. Is it your hips? Is it your neck? And so that really was honestly the greatest thing that had ever happened to me, because I had to reach rock bottom where I had multiple surgeries and basically lose trust in the system to find this young man trying to start his business named Ryan Morrissey. And I found him in it was a dilapidated Gold's Gym on West Street. And he gave a full effort that day, just like he does in his beautiful gym today. And that's why I kind of was leaning towards listening to what he said. And I told him, I go, anything you tell me to do, I promise you I will do it. And I will do it to the best of my ability. And if something gets in the way or whatever, I'll shoot you straight, because I've already hurt myself by putting up the guard and not being transparent with my coaches and all that. I go, I'm just done with it because I'm the one losing.
Yeah.
So be careful what you say to me, because I'm literally going to go do it.
Yeah. What was it inside of you, Brian, like that even made you not want to give up on the fact that, that you actually had, there was light to get, like, what made you just say, you know what, I'm not so much done, because I don't think that, knowing you, I know you would never say that, but how did you have belief that there was actually a solution out there, like that you could find a solution? Because you had been through all the trainers, I'm sure all the doctors at Towson, like, and you shooting blanks. So how did you come to that realization? There was a solution out there.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. Like my mom and dad had a yin and yang approach to parenting, where my mom basically said, you're not going to suck at anything. And then my dad was like, make sure you love it. Right. And so as I was working through my injuries, my dad also had this strategy of go figure out who's really the guy or the girl or woman, that can, really help you figure out on a grassroots level who can fix you, not who's in your insurance network or who everybody thinks is great. Go find that person that speaks the language that you wish everyone spoke, and then interview them.
Yeah.
And then once you interview that person, you'll open up a whole world that you never knew existed. And then it becomes your job to be a walking billboard for what we called disruptive out-of-network medicine.
Yeah.
And so my dad and I were always talking about how do we go find that thing, that guy, that girl, whatever it may be, that left modern big box fill in the blank because they knew it wasn't the right way. It was just the path of least resistance. And I am the opposite of the path of least resistance. I consider myself an elitist, not because I want to be better than everybody, but I expect a functioning human body to give a full effort because I have no excuse not to.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I often talk about with the technology leaders that everybody poo-poos when the first technology comes out. Like when texting came out, everybody said, no, I'm never going to text. When Instagram came out, I'm never going to be on Instagram. When Facebook, I'm never going to be on Facebook. And I'm never going to buy anything in the internet. Like everybody says that initially, but the people that are open to it, eventually you come over to that. But the people like yourself are open to like hearing alternative solutions. I know that my daughter, Ryan, her coach, of course, this is like completely the wrong way to coach, but basically told her she was slow. And I mean, couldn't believe it. And so not only was she pissed, but the parents were pissed, but Michelle and I, but we knew enough to be like, you know what, this is a girl in the middle of her growing, and she's, still growing into her own body. She's 5'9" as a 10-year-old, and so it was going to come, but I was like, someone needs to teach her how to sprint. And like growing up in my generation, you were told you were born with wheels or you didn't have wheels. There was no way to improve it. But fortunately, surrounding myself with Ryan and his crew, she started working and went from, bottom 25% to like the top sprinter on the team. And not a long time, just by learning how to sprint. And I think that's the challenge. Like, can you be open to the fact of like old dogma, old wisdom, old shit, and be open to the fact that there actually may be a solution? I think that's a big deal.
Yeah, completely agree with you. Bill, I think that the piece that we get in trouble with as parents in the sport performance industry, a lot of times we want the immediate turnaround, right? And you come into a place like us or go see a trainer or, go to a coach, and you're 3-4 weeks out from season and you want to get in shape for season, right? And we don't look at it as long-term development. We look at it as immediate needs right now, but we want the things that take a long time to develop. So the buy-in, if it's not there for a multi-year process, you can't have the expectations that you have. And it takes patience and it takes hard work and commitment. And you have to delay the shiny new toy that we see on all of the marketing and fitness, right? Like what grabs our attention? Looking at YouTube videos of guys jumping on 60, 70-inch boxes, right? And power cleans and agility ladder. Well, Brian's, at the time, 23-year-old pro athlete, and I have him stand on one foot day one. And it's like, what is this all about? But those are the things that are needed to set the foundation early, that then we can layer on more invasive training and you can have success long-term. So when people come through our door, and when your daughter came through the door and she was working with Tori, he's not having her do, parachute resisted wind sprints day one. We need to learn how, and we can maximize what the body already has as an engine that day by delivering just better technique, right? And better power delivery to the ground and better geometry. And those are the things that they take buy-in. And, I was talking to a friend this weekend, and she was telling me about what new fitness fad that she's into. And you know how I go on my rants about that stuff.
Hold on, there was a rant. Can you repeat it? Can you mind meld?
Okay. So it's one of the big time companies that are out there now that have 10 million customers and everybody rides on a bike. You can guess what it is. So she's on that, but she's on the treadmill version of the app, right?
Oh, yeah.
Now this is somebody that 6 months ago couldn't run because she had plantar fasciitis, had a bunch of biomechanical things, gave her some solutions, didn't want to do any of them. So just rested, did the boot solution. And then 6 months later gets the Peloton app. And then dives on that treadmill and now is running like crazy. So just talk to her about, why did you choose that? And what kind of solution are we getting out of it? And like most people, the answer was, well, the classes are fun. Well, that's great. So is eating ice cream and going out to the bar. we get so confused with fun and progress that they get blended, and that's what drives me crazy. So I went on my rant with her about why are we choosing a tool to give you something before we choose a strategy, right?
Right.
So
I got to interrupt you.
please do.
So did you hear about the Shred Zone story, Brian? Did you hear about this? No. So Ryan's working with a bunch of my employees at Red Zone. We call it Shred Zone. When I built out the space, I built out the separate lifting area for me. It was for me, but I never use it. It's like everybody in the company uses it. And then, so Ryan, what is it, about 4 or 5 folks you're working with?
Yep.
So every week Ryan works with Shred Zone, and it's been 10 months now. And so they have he got a newbie and joined the group about a month ago. And she came in last week and said, "Oh, Ryan, I'm making good progress. What do you think about if I do Zumba class this weekend on Saturday, Zumba class?" And everybody, the oxygen just left the room. They're like, "All right." And you just see Ryan starting to crank up.
Just later fluid.
Okay, Ryan. So now you can continue with your story about Zumba and Peloton versus.
Well, it's the same thing. Same thing. Parallel stories, right? So whether it's Zumba, whether it's Peloton, whether it's CrossFit, Orange Theory Fitness, whatever it is, they're tools. But we don't look at what do they provide physiologically. We go to them because our friends are, or they're fun, or it's close, or whatever it is. So we don't start with the steps prior to that, which should be, what is my goal, right? So your daughter's goal was, I want to get faster, right? My friend's goal is, I want to get back to running, and I want to be able to run races. Great. Well, let's think about how we need to do that. Well, we need to learn how to run properly for both of them, right? One for speed, one for injury prevention. We need to remove whatever the obstacles are with the body in order to do that, whether it's joint restrictions or lack of core stability or whatever it is. And then we need to figure out what setting is that in. Is that through weight training, body weight training, mobility work, whatever. And then it's, okay, what's the tool that provides that? What's the setting? And that's the last choice. But we flip it as a society because that new shiny gym around the corner is fun. And then we never get to our goals. We wind up just beating ourselves up or not making any progress because, again, we didn't choose a proper strategy to get there. And that's what happened with your...
I had a conversation with a guy today about removing the word fun and happy from the vocabulary.
Love it. All for it.
Because you can't measure fun and you can't measure happy. I think
objective.
Also, Brian, how many times, were you actually happy during your training? Like
zero.
Like
what day were you happy?
We won the world championship.
But right. And then that lasts
a lifetime.
A lifetime, sure. But are you happy all the time? I think we get these words. I think the words are powerful and they mean quite a bit. I like the word satisfied. I like the word joy. I think it's just different. It's more persistent, instead of like, well, it's fun. Well,
the other ones feel great. People want to feel great daily, right? So what do I tell you, BV? We're training for something. You're going to feel great the day before the event, and you're going to feel great up on the podium, or when you win the championship, hold the trophy over your head. And then it's back to training. You're going to feel like crap for a year, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing that I find really interesting about training and the mindset is, generally speaking, no one says, hey, this is going to be hard. And they don't create this metric for, this is what preseason should feel like. This is what in-season should feel like. And here's what preseason feels like again, right? Because there's really two things, generally speaking. And so I know the answer is because people are soft, right? And the path of least resistance paved, right? But it's just because society doesn't say it's acceptable for it to be hard. Mm-hmm. And the second it gets hard, people feel like they're doing something wrong. And so I'm always pushing on Morrissey, Bill, to create peak kids, or to create, a thing for, moms who just had a kid, because everyone's tired and everybody wants to get back in shape, or they want their kid to be this, or they want to bring their kid that. But we're coming in with this pill mentality, which is, well, just give me the pill and I'll be okay. And so it wasn't until I got my body comp that I realized that I wasn't actually in shape. I was just a gifted athlete that had completely bought into the wrong system.
Mm.
And the system just absolutely ran me over because I bought in so aggressively. And so when Ryan made me, take my shirt off and he's like pinching me with these clamps and writing X's on me and all this stuff, he goes, "Hey, brother, you're skinny fat." And I said, I go, "Well, that's not the goal." He goes, "Nope, that is not the goal." I go, "Well, will you help me fix this?" He goes, "I will absolutely help you fix this. And it's a very straightforward process. It is difficult,
Yeah.
but you will reap the rewards if you follow the process." And so, that's kind of a rant in a sense, but on the same kind of thought is asking Ryan, how do we get more people access to humans like you? So in 10 years, 20 years, it is Zumba. It is CrossFit, where it's hard the whole time. And then you leave there, you're just like, let's go. I just dominated that. I'm a better human. It sucked the entire time, but now I feel accomplished.
Yeah.
Like, how do we do that?
That's a great question, because I think it's way more than fitness, right? It's a culture issue that we have right now, where not you guys, I know your answer, but how do most people define success? Success is the ability to buy things that make your life more comfortable, right? That's success for most people. And go ahead, guys. Go ahead, Bill.
I mean, I think when it depends who the audience is, but when Ryan, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that they're going to default to our pantry. Mm-hmm. And most of us, I'm 51, so anybody in that, you're reading the milk and you're reading that it says 1 and 2%, and you're making all of your decisions based on, 1 and 2% fat, and you're looking at the salad dressing. We'll get to Brian in a couple minutes about salad. I mean, it's all sneaky sugars. Like, nobody's paying attention because we're all sort of have inherited this belief pattern. And then all of a sudden it comes to a grinding halt when you say, you know what, you're going to actually be quicker if you actually are 10 pounds lighter. And saying that to a teenager is not politically correct. Mm-hmm. And the parents have to have the courage to not only line up their own pantries so that their teenagers can make good decisions, but actually having a conversation saying, listen, this is not about your appearance at school and the ability for you to, and I've had this conversation, wear a bikini on the beach, but you actually want to be fast and you want to be making the starting lineup, and you're going to be able to be more mobile and faster across the pitch, 10 pounds lighter. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard conversation to have. And we can have that with our kids, but then we actually have to have that internally in our own brain to know that high performance adults and high performance kids actually starts in the kitchen. That's a shift right there.
Oh yeah. That's talking religion and politics. It's brutal. And people don't look at it objectively again. So emotion weaves into that, decision. And think about like raising kids. We all have them. What makes our kids immediately happy when they're younger? Well, we stuff their face with candy or a treat, and they stop crying, right? They stop moaning. So if we're into that behavior from early on, in their childhood, getting out of that as a teenager is pretty rough, right? And I think, Bill, you've experienced it. We're going to experience it, BB. No, we see it all too often. So I mean,
my kids are, now you can order that food on the food app, and it's just, I can't believe that they're buying if it doesn't not in the fridge, they can buy it on Uber Eats. Okay. Mm-hmm. And they're buying the Chick-fil-A, and they'll get the chicken delivered in, and then the Chick-fil-A will have like a big jug of the barbecue sauce, and you turn it around, and these kids are 17, 18 years old, and they're all, my son and others are just jacked because you can just walk around jacked as a 17, 18-year-old, just lifting a couple times, but they don't realize that they're just drinking sugar on top of that chicken. And they're like, really? Yeah, dude, it's corn syrup. And like, really? It's corn syrup? Yeah. And so their whole life is about corn syrup. It's literally the kids in everything in their diet.
Yep.
I don't know how you dig out from that. I don't know how you dig out from that. It's a complicated problem.
Last year, I was working with a local high school lacrosse team, and we did a nutrition intervention with them. And we were breaking down the the difference between macronutrients and what kind of ratio we want and how to fill those buckets up with whole foods and minimize processing. And we mapped it out on a food app, and I just took them through their day. And I compared their day on a food app, Chronometer, that you use. And then I took them through one of my days, equal caloric intake. And in one meal on the bus after a game on the way home with a Chick-fil-A stop, they exceeded their carbohydrate intake for the day, right, in one meal. And not only did they exceed it, but what made up that carbohydrate intake, right? It wasn't vegetables, butternut squash, Brussels sprouts, right? It was smoothies and fries. And they just have no awareness. So the education is a huge piece that needs to start early on in schools and from parents. And then three, the other thing is just the fact that it's all convenient, right? You mentioned an app earlier. So tech makes it more convenient to eat quicker and in an unhealthy manner. The fast food options out there are endless. And without education and, and brands, right, and awareness, and that's what, thank God, BV's doing. He's making it, and their company's making it easier to have healthy solutions that you can grab on the go, and it tastes great, and it doesn't feel like you're, blending up vegetables in a blender.
So Brian, let's talk about Tessemae for a moment. How did this whole company come together? Like, what was the genesis founding story of like when you guys decided it's time to go live with this as a business?
Yeah, it goes back to my mom and dad. So my dad was in the Peace Corps, and then from the Peace Corps, he got involved in nonprofits in DC, where he was responsible for going into South and Central America and building economies. And so he was an economist before he got drafted to Vietnam and then eventually sent over to the Peace Corps. And what he saw was these very poor people with very good skills. They knew how to farm. They knew how to make a home because you couldn't go to Home Depot. That wasn't even a choice. And so here are these people who have to have these skills to survive. And then he would come home to Maryland, and we're going to Safeway, Sam's Club, whatever it is, and eating hot dogs and sauerkraut and mashed potatoes, because it tasted good. And, the mouth is a dangerous place, because once your parents hand down to you their routine and their habits, it becomes your reality. And so my dad said, hey guys, I just went to this really cool place in Colombia, and they would go on these morning walks, and then they would walk back home, and they would go to their garden and make their food. He was like, they're unbelievably fit. There's a health spa in Tecate, Mexico called Rancho La Puerta. And Rancho La Puerta is a wellness spa. And it's right on the backside of Mount Cuchuma, about 100 miles inland from Tijuana. And you go there to be well and create new habits. So he took my mom, and their saying is bring a piece of the ranch back with you. So by chance, there was a guy who came down from San Diego who started this concept called La Cocina que Canta, which is the singing kitchen. And he wanted the kitchen in his culture to translate to the American culture, but it really wasn't. So my mom was bringing back like gazpacho and black bean lentil soup and her own salad dressings and all this stuff. So she sets up a tasting: gazpacho, black bean soup, and what looked like olive oil. My brothers and I spit out the gazpacho, spit out the black bean soup, and then we loved the salad dressing. And she goes, guys, you're not going to believe this. This is my formula. I made this. And we're like, yeah, sweet, Mom. No one cares. This is just delicious. And so at that moment in hindsight, what happened in that moment was your tongue tells your brain yes or no. And food scientists know that. And so a food scientist can make food cheaper and deliver that same experience on your tongue that goes to the receptors, but then leaves you feeling empty. That's more profit for them. Mm. So what we do at Tessemae is we make sure you're satiated. And so it's going to taste, smell, and feel just as good as a Dorito. But instead of having you chasing the Diet Coke, it's going to make you feel like I can go do whatever I need to do. There's no post-food coma deal, or you don't want sugar, because your body is properly, fueled up with just normal natural food that the universe has provided for us. And so what ultimately ended up happening was my mom made this dressing. It was the only dressing we would eat, and it was the only way she could make us eat vegetables and eat healthy food because Doritos were too delicious, right?
Right.
So we started to evolve the formula. And then roughly 12 years ago, my older brother's neighbor, who's like the neighborhood drug dealer, broke into his house and stole the dressing. And so we said, if a man's going to steal another man's salad dressing that isn't healthy, and we are healthy, that we got to figure out how to sell this. And so today, 12 years later, we are now the number one selling organic salad dressing in North America. We have a 70 share of the category, and we're taking that brand loyalty and those brand standards now and applying it to what we believe is the biggest issue in our country, which is the snackification of America. And so we're going to meet Americans' want for better for you, ready to go foods with our brand standard. And so we've created these options that not only are up to our standard, but we're also creating a platform, whether it's a bento box, which is like basically a healthy Lunchable,
Yep.
or a chicken dipper, which is like a grab and go organic chicken nugget with a ranch dipping sauce that
Sure.
Tessemae makes. And we're going to put those next to all of the stuff that takes away from people's lives. And so our mission at Tessemae is very simple: simplify food to amplify life. Because people should trust their food. They should not have to look at a brand, be confused, turn it around, hope they went to school for like molecular biology and food science and be like, oh, that seems correct. I know exactly what xanthan gum is and why natural flavors can, equate for 75% of the formula, but actually be the entire thing. Like no one knows that, and nor should they.
Yeah, I remember being on a bike ride, I think last year, and I was yelling to, what's so good about the ingredients in salad dressing? And you're like, stay away from the sour gum. And was it sour gum? Maybe you can tell that story.
Xanthan gum.
Oh, xanthan gum. Okay.
Yeah. And then you asked me about like guar gum and something else. And the reality is it's just not a necessary thing to put into food.
Yeah.
Because food should be there to allow your body to regenerate its cells, to properly fight disease, and to make you feel great. And so I'm a firm believer that the majority of the disease and the issues in our country, as far as just wellness in general, all ties back to the food processing that happens in our country. And so we get big offers from a lot of big companies to buy us because they don't want us basically pulling out the rug from under them and saying, hey, it's not that we're right and you're wrong. It's that what you're doing isn't necessary. And the more you do this, the more you're allowing disease to come into a human's body and take away from their quality of life. And that's not acceptable.
So, a big part of this show is 10X mindset and just going for not 3-5% incremental improvement, but actually shooting for something that's a big effing deal, and I like to say it's like Elon Musk. It's so big that you might not achieve it in this lifetime. That's how big it is. And so basically what you're saying is that you want to disrupt the food industry by making these healthy choices, putting these healthy choices right next to the foods that are destroying, just as we're talking about our kids and our selections. Is that essentially what you're, by amplifying life and having these choices? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's exactly right.
And
Peak approved.
What's that? Peak
Peak
approved,
approved.
right? Yeah, peak approved all the way.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the big things is like, where have you guys had? What's been the biggest misconception about what you're doing? And I'll ask this question to both of you. What's the biggest question that you constantly are answering people about or addressing, that if you had a sign in your head, you could just walk around with a billboard that answered the question for people? The biggest misconception about what you're doing, Brian, in your industry right now?
Well, it's more of a question. It's, who do you think you are? And why do you think you have permission to make people feel good?
Well, I think that's the same reason why you decided that, who do you think you are to after you're busted up and all broken down, to come back and actually come back and lead your team to the championship. I think it's the same question.
Yep.
That's why I asked, what was the motivator?
So it's a weird thing, because we try to just be our brand every single day. And like, even when I'm devastatedly tired doing class with you guys and I can't even think, it's impossible to make me not smile, because it just feels so much better than feeling bad. And when you eat properly and you actually feel your body operate, and we always consider our bodies NASCARs, right? And so it's like the NASCAR, they have pit crews.
Yeah.
And if you don't go stop and get that thing realigned, it's going to explode. And the same thing goes for the body. And this is why I love Morrissey probably more than I love anyone. And he literally not only understands that, but he will map out every 5 weeks, need to go get preventative maintenance, manual physical therapy. Every day, you need to foam roll like this. You need to breathe like this. You need to set goals and work backwards from them. You need to do all of these little things and then just go execute it. And if you miss one day, you must let me know so I can adjust our goal or make you do something harder so we can still obtain that goal.
Yeah.
And so, I don't have a good answer for the thing on my head, which is, here's the thing we're fixing. It's just more like, how do you all sleep at night doing it the other way? Do you not see how sick people are? Do you not see how fat everyone is?
Yeah, but I think what I've learned just by talking to you, Brian, is that I like these pictures here of you in the field, and I like the pictures of you here, because you're actually I think you have a unique approach to how you're going to market, and I think a lot of people don't understand what it takes to get something like this, which I love, this avocado ranch. How you get to a product like that, or like many of your products, from this. And so maybe you can just talk about the details of that, because I think that's important for people to understand of how you're sourcing this disruptive product, and sort of where you're getting it from.
So it's two things. Number one is you got to be super curious and ask a lot of questions. And so we have tons of people throughout the country that participate in our studies, which is, what don't we know about fill in the blank? And you would be surprised at what they tell you. One of the examples is anti-caking agent in mustard powder. And the thing that hits you right here when you eat mustard is not the vinegar. It's the anti-caking agent mixed with the vinegar that makes it feel like, that type of deal. So we went into the world mustard tasting competition, which is a real thing. And, we got second place because we basically copied a formula or a process. Like, we didn't steal or anything, but we went down this same path that this group in Germany has been doing for 400 years, right? They just take mustard seeds and they process it so it becomes a powder. They put beautiful organic spices and vinegar in it, and then it tastes like mustard does. You don't get that type of a deal.
Yeah.
And so that's just one example. And then the other one is, we have a set of core values that we just simply don't deviate from. And people are always asking us, why do you always preach about your core values? Why does that even matter? I go, because there's so much noise and there's so many corners you can cut to make money in the food space, because food outside of oxygen is really the only other thing that's essential, right? You have to have food. You have to have oxygen. Everything else is a nice to have. And so there is more money going into manipulating taste for profit, ingredient for profit. So we created these core values that really forced our suppliers to comply with my mom's formula that she made up randomly 25 years ago. And it's kind of funny because people are like, oh my God, that's the best tasting thing I've ever had. How do you do it? Wait, there's no sugar in it? Wait, there's no gluten in it? Wait, there's no filler in it? Well, like, I know, can you imagine that? Delicious ingredients that are not manipulated, mixed properly, taste good. It's a crazy concept, I know. But we just simplify the whole thing. And that's why our mission is simplify food to amplify life. And instead of being like preachy and aggressive with our suppliers, we challenge them to, why did you get into this space? And most of them have a really cool story based on like their grandparent or their second generation or third generation. And we're like, well, how did your food get to here? They're like, honestly, man, I have no idea. And we say, hey, will you partner with us and come on this ride with us? Because if you do, we're super loyal. And if you have our back, we will have your back, I promise. And most people that are procuring raw products, there's like, what's your price? What's your lead time? What's your minimum? I hate my life. I'm drinking Diet Coke and I want to go smoke a cigarette. And then here we are like, and it's our mom, and she created this formula. It's for my brothers. It makes you feel so great.
So I can just picture you right now in the middle of this field, having that conversation.
Oh yeah, that's a cool spot. So that's out in the Salinas Valley, and that is a romaine field. So it's pretty cool.
That's neat.
Yeah.
So Ryan, it's been COVID for a year now. And, I would say that in my 20 years, I've had a couple come to Jesus moments for sure through that time, having to start the company up again, mid-start, kind of buckle you to the knees moments. But I'd love to know, like, coming out of this right now with COVID, what is the one thing that you've learned from this and taken away that you're glad COVID happened? Because if it hadn't happened, you wouldn't have developed the new capabilities and new thinking patterns as a result, and the new things you're offering your customers and clients.
Yeah. So similar to, other industries, everyone's had to be on fast forward with creativity and tech. There are the tech solutions, some of the ones I was ranting about earlier, that kind of take over our industry due to their marketing budget. But the customized approach isn't there. That's what's missing. There's nobody behind the Peloton video saying, hey, Bill, this is the right class to take for you and where you are right now in your strategy. And that's what's missing. So what we've done is we've fast forwarded the development of a couple coaching platforms that I use anyway or used prior. But now just trying to upgrade the service that we can offer with that, involve more detail-oriented video tutorials so people can get access to our programming and the attention to detail. And that's the big piece, as you guys know. So every little detail matters. We don't want to leave any stone unturned. And in order to offer that stuff to somebody that's out of state, you need a pretty detail-oriented platform, and content on that platform. So that's what we've done lately. So offering, Zoom training, we offer virtual training classes that you guys join me on a couple mornings of the week.
Yep.
People can take that from anywhere in the country. And then along the same lines, the strategy for coaching, right? To have somebody really hold your hand and take you through the process of long-term development instead of choosing your tool before your strategy. So those things combined, I think you guys can attest to, can help you not only attain your short-term goals, but steer you in the direction where you want to be long-term.
Yeah, I think there's I don't know where people think that they can just stop using coaches. I don't know where that comes from, but I just like being able to open my phone, hit the app, see what Morrissey's put on my schedule for the day, and just have zero thinking. I think a lot of people just give too much thought to what they're, and it's the wrong thought because they've got their business, their kids, their family, and you just got 45 minutes to an hour to get it in and get it done. And I think there's a huge value in coaching. That's been my experience. I just would not have been able to keep the consistency up.
Yep. And regardless of setting or equipment too. I mean, on the other end, we've accelerated in technology, but what happened at the beginning of COVID? Gym shut down immediately, and how many people were just treading water? They were lost and they fell off with their fitness, fell off with their health. And then a lot of people did the opposite, how many months were we just training out in the woods with a couple rubber bands, right? You make it happen, and you figure out solutions regardless of where you are and what you have access to. And, a bunch of people that we have in here that have the right attitude and mindset never skipped a beat. And that's refreshing to see. And I think we were talking about the culture piece earlier, as we can learn to delay, a little bit of that comfort, work a little harder short term, you can reach your long-term goals and get to where you need to be. And it doesn't matter what equipment you're on. What's the
one coach parent thing that you see coming up most frequently from all the parents you deal with that you wish you had like a little how-to manual for parents? And if you could just put them on like a wind-up toy and you could just put the parents like, and if they could just follow that program, what trips parents up the most, that they think they're doing a great job for their kids, but they end up, not, they're cutting them out at the knees. What do you think?
Yeah, it's the lack of the big picture, the comprehensive approach. So parents usually go all in one area. And, Brian, you can speak about it, I'm sure, coming up through club sports, but we go all in on skill. So a lot of times we get the athletes in, I use that term loosely, we get the players in that are told by their coach that they're not athletically, in the right position to be able to make the A team or get recruited to a high school since they're starting so early now, or recruited to college. So we're teaching high-level skilled players of whatever sport we're talking about how to be an athlete first. And that's so different from, I think, both our generations, right? We grew up playing outside, riding bikes, climbing trees, running around. We were athletes first. And then you figure out, what are you doing? Are you swinging a bat? Are you putting a stick in your hand? And it's flip-flopped. So I think learning the basic skills of how to run, right? Get outside, exercise, get in various settings, understand your body awareness, get some core strength, do a good job in the kitchen, right? Get some healthy behaviors early on, and then diversify your week. Instead of 6 practices in a tournament, how about we do a little bit of body care somewhere in there and take out.
I can guarantee you people get frustrated because they have to be patient. I know the Shred Zone folks in my team, they're like, I know they were chomping at the bit for about 8 weeks, but I was like, just waiting. I said, guys, just wait. Hunting season hasn't begun yet with Morrissey. I said, you got to understand the basics. I said, hunting season will begin. And sure enough, they come out like right now, dripping, from the pure exertion for an hour. But you started them out very, like you're just saying with Brian, how to stand on one foot, like how to balance on one leg with your proper hip posture and everything. I think people aren't patient enough.
Not at all. Well, it's the same thing, Brian. If you're going to teach me how to shoot a lacrosse ball, are we going to stand midfield and just chuck it 50 yards? No. What are you going to do? You're going to get me on the wall. Like, how do I hold this thing? With my hands, right?
So hold on, Brian. Speaking on the how to throw the lacrosse ball. So, at Penn State, there's a girl there that we all know that is starting as a freshman. Mm-hmm. And I heard you ranting about how you were teaching her how to throw the ball like a don't throw like a girl, throw it like a boy. But
no, I said shoot like an athlete.
Oh, okay.
Trying to get BB in some trouble here.
Yeah. No. I said shoot like an athlete. I go, you're just pushing the ball. I go, get your hip in there. Right. And so what I make every kid do in lacrosse is I just say, hey, throw this ball as far as you can. And usually they have perfect throwing thought process, right? They're not necessarily great at throwing the ball, but the thought process there, they kind of come back and then they let that thing go. Yeah. And it's really no different between men and women when they do that. I said, okay, now put 2 hands on your stick, and we properly align their hand on the shaft and all that. And I go, now do that same thing. And they're like, oh my God. I go, yes. And now the next thing, penalties. And this is my favorite thing because I got 2 boys and 2 girls of my own. So I tell my daughters, I go, not only are girls tougher than boys, but penalties don't matter. You just first play, run straight through the other little girl, score the goal, celebrate. You're going to get a penalty. You're not going to get the goal. The next play, the little girl's not going to get in front of you again. She's going to step out of the way. You're going to score, celebrate again. No penalty. It's going to be beautiful. And so that's what I told that young lady who's crushing at Penn State. Don't forget to run through their face.
Valuable lessons from BB.
I love that. So Brian, I love I coached at the club soccer level for 10 years when my kids were coming up your kids' age. And I have a lot of parent stories myself, but my favorite parent stories are your parent stories, not mine. So tell everybody what if a kid arrives late at practice, what do you do?
So this kind of was my idea, but it was more because this other kid was so angry. So if a kid shows up late and they don't have their license, I think it's unfair that the child has to run a lap because their parent's late. And so what I do is I make the parent run a lap to get their child into practice. And at first you have this like very aggressive parent saying, "Who are you to tell me to run? I don't even care about this sport, blah, blah, blah." And then I just say, "Well, why are you here?" And they're like, "Well, I want it to be fun." I go, "In what world is being late acceptable anywhere?" I go, "Are you late to work every day?" "Well, no, I can't be late." "Well, then why are you showing your child that it's okay to be late to anything?" And then usually they really start to come around. And what's more important than the parent running and then being angry at me and saying, "Who is this dude, blah, blah, blah," is that you get the kids' buy-in that it's not acceptable to disrespect anything.
Yeah.
And if we're supposed to be here at a time, we show up there with the appropriate amount of time before to be ready. So we call it DARTG, which is dressed and ready to go, with the parent penalty lap.
Parent penalty lap. I just think that's a thing of beauty right there. I love it.
Thank you. Hey, and listen, I run the lap too. I made my wife run the lap too. There's no like, if a coach is late, but it's no big deal. And then the kids don't have this anxiety about, is it the coaches versus me? Is it the parent versus me? Yep. Because the kid's going to have to run a lap if they're late in high school. And if you don't make them understand that at a young age, it's this very scary moment, because that's when kids do care, right? That's when they actually do get embarrassed. In the third grade and the fourth grade, they have no idea what's going on. And so, over the years, and I've been coaching youth sports since 2009, the one thing that I have noticed is that all the kids we've coached in the past have gone on to just be great people. And they're very open and honest about themselves and the process because they feel included in a bigger community. And that community is the process of getting better.
Yeah.
And it takes people like us to be super exposed and vulnerable and say, "Hey, I don't know anything. How did I get this far and I didn't do this?" Right? And the answer is, who knows? It doesn't matter. But the point is, if you don't have a process to fall back on when you get hit in the mouth, the fall is twice as far. And then most people don't ever get back up from that. So that's what I really preach to these parents is we want functioning humans, right? You don't coach a kid to be 7'2".
Yeah.
That kid just is a basketball player now. Congratulations, you're a millionaire. You don't coach 6'8", 270. That runs a 4.5. That kid is just going to the NFL. And it's the same for the kid that goes to MIT or the kid who just knows how to do that thing. That's not who we're talking about, right? We're talking about the general kid who has the passion, who has the fight, and just needs an infrastructure to be supported. And then the last thing I tell the parents was, "When was the last time you scored a goal?" And they're like, "Well, I don't play." I go, "So what do you care? What we do with your child, don't you want them to be a winner?" They're like, "Well, of course we want them to be a winner." I go, "So then stop making them a loser, because you are taking your anxiety about your inefficiencies and applying it to the rest of us. Get that out of here."
Yeah.
Let us get your kid dialed in.
Yeah, it's funny when my kids are about, looks like probably 10 years older than your kids. But what's interesting is that when the kids, the way they're acting as a 5, 6, 7, I always thought in my mind, is that the behavior I want as a 16, 17, 18-year-old? So I was always thinking, is that the behavior that I want 10 years down the road? Even my 15-year-old the other day, I'm like, I'm telling you this because I want my 25-year-old to respond to the situation in that way, not a 15-year-old brain, but when that brain with the prefrontal cortex comes fully online as a 26-year-old, I want you dialed in. And so it's because the kids don't care what you say, they care what you do. They literally do not care, and they have access to all the information, so they know when you're bullshitting. Like, at least when I was growing up, I didn't know. My father could be full of shit and I wouldn't have known. Now I can actually find out, like, is that true? And so there's a complete transparency. So I agree with you. It's like the parents, it doesn't matter what you say, it's what you do. And it doesn't fully bite you in the ass till 10 years down the road. And then 10 years down the road. So you really don't see the effect of your parenting. I know you want to jump in, Ryan.
Well, how many parents, I mean, I'm sure it's hard for us too. You want to be your kid's friend, right? And that's not our role. And that can only go so long. And you're not doing your kid you're doing your kid a disservice if you don't change that behavior. And I think you nailed it on the head with every practice, not sports practice, but every practice in the house, every guideline, every teachable moment that you have now is going to affect you down the road. And I think the pieces that parents don't quite fully grasp, or they feel like it's not going to happen, is the fact that your kid will thank you. It might take some time, and it might be 10 years down the road, but making their life a little uncomfortable early on is going to teach them a bunch of valuable lessons that are going to help them. This is not just about sports, like BB said, right? This is about work. This is about life. This is about success everywhere and how to handle uncomfortable situations. So by making them or presenting them early on, 10, 15 years down the road, they're going to come back and thank their parents. And I mean, I did some things when I was in high school. Are you kidding me? I wasn't listening to my parents at all. They were driving me crazy. But then 1 year in college, it just flipped. And as those things hit you in the face and you need accountability, you understand, oh, wow, that's right. I was taught this lesson. It's been a while. I got to go back in the Rolodex and find it. But my parents were trying to teach me this 5, 10 years ago. And that's the piece that we just need to understand. It's going to be okay long term, even though we might battle in high school.
Amazing. Hey guys, let's bring this full circle. So Ryan, what have we been talking about that you as I'm talking, as Brian's talking, you're like really want to end with, like, you really want to make the message loud and clear. Anything at all that we've been talking about? Is there anything that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think the big piece here, in all of this conversation is it pertains to ego, right? And the difference between ego and confidence. And a lot of times we talk about building self-confidence through working out and exercise, right? How many people start that or start martial arts or sports because they want to build self-confidence? But our ego, that artificial confidence that everybody comes into the gym with day one, right? And they're afraid to let their guard down. They're afraid to run into the wall, right? They don't want their limits to be shown. They don't want that to be public. So they find ways to get out of uncomfortable situations so they're never truly seen, right? And that's what you guys aren't afraid to do, right? You'll run right into a wall and we know exactly where you are today. What that does, that allows us to build from there. So the ego is our limiting factor moving forward in fitness and in life. And until we can shed that, we can't really make progress. So understanding that, in whatever industry we're talking about, as parents, we aren't qualified to make those decisions everywhere, right? I don't go to the accountant and tell them how to do my taxes. That's why I hire them. Same thing with fitness. Sub it out, right? Get somebody to just help you. And it doesn't mean you have to hold hands the whole time, but develop a strategy, be more of a coach, and to help you get to your long-term development, long-term goals.
Yeah, that's great, Ryan. And just to build on that, one of the biggest things I think for business leaders is many of them are too fat, and that
was straightforward.
No, but it is, when you get into that rut, man, it's tough to get out. And whether you're a mom, or dad, it doesn't matter. Like, we're all susceptible to just letting things go. And so, we'll have show notes, links down below that everybody can reach out to Ryan. But I think that this is hard. Like you said, the ego part is a really big deal, because you have to admit that, I've got to really take a step back and kind of map out, where do I really want to be? You guys tease me about the longevity thing, but I think it's a big deal. Like, what can you do at 40? Can you still do it at 50? And with John Graham, he's 62, does he have a vision of being healthy and fit at 72 and then at 82? And we can do that these days. The technology's there. I mean, and Brian's company's making healthy foods. Like, we're going to figure this out, and we have it. We just got to surround ourselves with the right team and the right mentors and the right people that we can keep us in line. And so anyway, I'm going to put links to your stuff down in the show notes, Ryan, so people can plug into you for that information. So Brian, what about yourself? What came up in this conversation? You're like, you know what, I just got to leave with this message for the listeners.
Well, it's kind of funny for me because we are disrupting the food industry, and we can put our stuff in a bottle and put it on the shelf, and it's more accessible than what Ryan does. And so what I think I came away with is, if people are curious and they don't want to feel bad anymore, they got to go just start this journey that says, hey, I need someone to look at me and say, hey, I can help you, but here is the process. And then you map that process out, and then you say, hey, create whatever, the thing is that will help you get through this. And what's super interesting is we have a woman that works for us in the Midwest, and she's lost 150 pounds in a year since she started working for Tessemae.
Wow.
150 pounds. She has never felt better. Her plan is to lose another 100 pounds, just to put it into perspective. And she has already scheduled her liposuction to get her skin removed, because she's not stopping, because she's now addicted to feeling good.
Yeah.
Joy. She's addicted to joy.
Yeah. See, there we go. There's the word.
There it is. And I told her, I said, listen, I'm so proud of you, because we preach all this stuff and we're fit. There it is, Chief Joy Officer. So we preach our core values, and our core values also have backup and support to them. And I think that's the main thing I came away with, is we have created this community for ourselves where it's acceptable to be not that good and always working towards getting better. And I told this to Ryan probably 5 years ago. I said, hey man, does this ever not suck the entire time you're doing it? He goes, well, only if you're not trying hard. And I was like, Jesus. So I had to come up with these sayings in my head, and I have two of them that Ryan has access to that he uses on me all the time. Number one, what are you going to quit? And like, that's my trigger. I'm like, no, I'm not going to quit. So I just keep going. And then the other one is legs feed the wolf. Because if the wolf doesn't run and go chase down that food, homeboy isn't eating. So those are the two things I ask myself when it gets tough. Like, what are you going to quit? And then you have to look at yourself in the mirror that day as a quitter, and, legs feed the wolf. Just because you can go to a grocery store doesn't mean you have to do that.
Hey, Brian, can you get access to the to this new nutrition option from the website, or is it these? What is it called? It's not the dressing itself.
The balance boxes and the dippers. Boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is really cool. So we are actually going to be launching nationwide with Walmart in July.
Nice.
And instead of going down the more traditional Tessemae route and going first to market with Whole Foods, we were actually challenged by Walmart, because they said, hey, you're simplifying food, but you're only amplifying life for a very small percentage of people, because you only go to the place where the people want this stuff. You're not going to the place where people need this stuff. So we're going to challenge you to go first to market with us because of our footprint.
Wow. And
I said, you're right.
Hold on. I'm Chief Revenue Officer, Growth Officer. And this is, I'm not sure if I understand this.
Well, it's, the money's one thing and the scale is another. But what they said to me really resonated, because they go, listen, there's not a Whole Foods everywhere, right? They're still trying to work on their deal, right? They're still expanding. We do have the footprint. So if you want to make the good you
but if you want to make that big exponential, the big 10x impact, and you've got the big horse for distribution, you got the big value system of getting that out there. Now you're just having to solve for this, not the distribution side.
Yep. And so our goal ultimately through these partnerships with these retailers is to give the most amount of people the most amount of access with the least amount of barriers. And so it's not like they get it first because they're big or not. It's like they can help us impact the most people that need this immediately. And then everybody else gets it on a normal time frame. So it's not like they get preferential treatment or anything, but they're really partnering with us from an innovation perspective, and they really believe that they can help impact the wellness of our country by partnering with brands like Tessemae. So
big impact. That's and what I like too, my takeaway from all this is that I know from my daughter, she goes in and she's at school, then she has lacrosse practice, and she is, you know the way it is. Right after you come down, you're cognitively studying the whole day. Then you got to go into practice. There's a bit of a dip, in there. I don't know all the chemistry around what's happening in the body, but they need food. She needs food a little bit before practice, and then right after, before coming home. And what I like is that, and this is not just the kids, but for parents that are listening, they can go and get these healthy alternatives, Brian, and basically just throw those into the lunch box, into the, and now she can hit stuff that tastes good, get a little bit of that, that dip to it as well. So it has a little bit of something different than just eating a celery stalk. And I think that's powerful, because my daughter, my kids are quite honest about it. Like it's access. Even myself, it's like, Ryan, you and I have gone back and forth a lot about, how do you manage the middle of the day, the tail end of the day, and you're in a lot of meetings and stuff, and be able to grab healthy alternatives. So Brian, I think that's like the white space you're trying to capture, and a huge part of fitness and wellness.
Absolutely.
Awesome stuff, guys. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes.
Oh, you got it. Appreciate it, Bill. Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
It's not on the nutrition plan, BV.
Yeah, I know. You're drinking Fit Aid. I'm here slamming the Guinness.
Yeah, I'm just wrapping up my Dunkin' Donuts.